friends were skinny and light, and they started the challenge. They were thrown through the air to fall a considerable distance. My turn came. I rocked for the first time. I took more flight, reached the highest possible height and then let go of the swing. The only detail was that instead of propelling my body forward, the weight took me backwards, so I did 2 flips in the air in reverse to land on my back with a thump. Under the swings, I lost the ability to breathe for a few seconds, and when I was able to get back up, I had severe pain in my chest when I moved or supported my arms. I think I fractured or cracked a rib, but out of pride and to avoid some paternal scolding, I suffered it in silence until it disappeared on its own, after not a few days. This experience reminds me of the videos that usually appear on social networks with the title Epic Fails or Epic Failures, and show how people, like what happened to me, do not achieve what they set out to do or fail in the attempt to do something, usually falling, hitting themselves, or breaking something they were taking care of. I'm sure we've all had our own failures or epic fails. We have all had some failure in some project, in some initiative, in some relationship, in some attempt. And I also know that there are failures whose consequences continue to haunt us to this day. What do we do with failure? How do we face failure? What to think about failure? In the Bible, we also see people who came face to face with failure. We could think of Abraham, David, Solomon and many others. But today we will consider one of Jesus' disciples, Simon, also known as Peter. Peter is one of the disciples most mentioned in the Gospels. In fact, he is one of the first disciples to whom Jesus said, "Follow me." Peter heads the list of disciples called by Jesus when he came down from the mountain and called his disciples. There is Peter first on the list. Pedro was bold, impulsive, he said what he was thinking without so many filters. And throughout his time training he had more than a few encounters with failure. For example, we remember when Jesus came to meet his disciples walking on water. And Peter tells him, "If it is really you," he commands, "that I come to you walking on the water." And Jesus said to him, "Come." Peter gets out of the 674 boat and begins to walk on the water, but suddenly he is afraid of the waves and the wind and sinks and cries out for Jesus to rescue him. Or, we remember the occasion when it is revealed to Peter that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and Jesus reiterates to him that this revelation did not come from man but from God. But a little while after recognizing it, Jesus he had to rebuke him because he was reflecting Satan's mind by suggesting that Jesus should not suffer or sacrifice himself. In short, Jesus was not to suffer or die for sin. Or when he was with John and James on the mount supposedly accompanying Jesus in prayer, he witnessed the transfiguration of Jesus and saw Elijah and Moses, and said something like, "Do you want us to make 3 tabernacles?" And the narrator of the Gospel says, "I didn't know what to say, because everyone was scared." Anyway, we see a very motivated Pedro, but he gets into trouble very easily. We see a Pedro who throughout his formation had his small failures, like all of us throughout our lives. But this same Pedro now had what we can call an epic fail, a gross failure, an epic failure. This failure is recorded not in 1 or 2, but in all 4 Gospels. And John sometimes does not include episodes that the other 3 do include or repeat, but the episode of Peter's great failure, known as Peter's denial, is also recorded among his pages. And in the context that surrounded this situation we found 3 realities about failure that we want to highlight this day. 3 realities that continue to manifest when we fail. All this happens the night Jesus was handed over. They had eaten the Passover. And Jesus, in the context of that intimate time with his disciples, tells them therein. Mark 14:27-31. "You will all abandon me," Jesus told